He didn't chase a platform. He just sent voice notes to friends. Until one of them changed everything.
Victor didn't wear a collar, hold a mic, or go live on Instagram. He didn't even consider himself a preacher. He was just a young man who loved God and was trying to stay consistent with his Bible reading. Every morning, he'd sit at the edge of his bed with a worn-out Bible, a cup of tea, and a phone whose screen looked like it had survived spiritual warfare. After his quiet time, he'd usually hit record on WhatsApp and send a 2 to 3 minute voice note to a small group of friends. Sometimes it was a verse that stood out. Other times, a raw reflection from a sermon or something God whispered while he was brushing his teeth. Nothing polished, no production, just honest, simple thoughts shared faithfully. A few blue ticks, one loyal responder who said amen like clockwork, even when it didn't apply, and occasionally a few fire emojis. But even those small signs reminded Victor that someone was listening, even if they never said much. Victor kept sending them, day after day, week after week. What he didn't know was that people were listening, quietly, not always responding, but listening, and sometimes forwarding. One day, a youth pastor in a different city received one of Victor's voice notes. A friend had shared it with the comment, "This guy says the most refreshing things, might bless your teens." The pastor listened, then listened again. He had a youth retreat coming up and was still finalizing the speaker lineup. He wasn't necessarily looking for someone new, but something about Victor's voice note made him pause. That afternoon, Victor got a message he never expected. It read,
"Hi, Victor. I heard your voice note on Jeremiah 1:5. Would you be open to speaking at our youth retreat next month?"
He stared at the message and genuinely wondered if they had mistaken him for someone else. Maybe another Victor with confidence. His first instinct was to decline. He wasn't polished. He didn't think of himself as someone with messages, but something in his spirit nudged him gently to check his voice notes. So he did. He scrolled. And as he did, something clicked. There it was, dozens of audio files, mini-messages, scriptures, stories, thought threads, each one a brick in something he hadn't realized he was building. Over the next few days, Victor compiled, he refined, he prayed. And when he finally stood in front of those young people, he didn't speak like someone trying to impress. He spoke like someone who had lived what he was saying. Every word had been lived long before it was ever spoken, one voice note at a time. And the room listened. And in time, what once echoed in a small WhatsApp group began to echo across cities. Through the devotional podcast, God led him to birth. Invitations came from places he'd never even visited: schools, churches, prayer meetings. Not because he chased platforms, but because he stewarded diligence well. But it all began with a small decision to be faithful, even when no one seemed to be watching. Because platforms don't build callings. Faithfulness does. Victor realized God doesn't call the viral, he calls the faithful.